in the multi-cloud environment. What is the idea and experience behind it will tell us our guest, Jablonowski from CloudBolt. He will present their own solution called, similar to our company, Cumulus, and the idea and of that solution is to enable cost transparency across the organization, across the overall IT environment when we talk about the multi-cloud. We have a couple of minutes to start, so Aaron, I suggest that you share your presentation, but let's wait a couple of minutes so other guests that registered for this topic can attend it at the 14 p.m. Central East European time. Hello everyone, welcome all that just joined us with our next campfire topic, which is cost management in multi-cloud. Here with us is Aaron Jablonowski, our member of the partner company called CloudBolt, and he will present you their solution Cumulus, which is focused for enabling cost transparency across your organization so that your business can focus on the core activities and not worry about the chargebacks. Aaron, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Dennis, and thanks to everyone for having me today. Excited to show you the product. I'm really overall excited about CloudBolt's recent acquisition of Cumulus, and definitely happy to show it to you today. So, as you mentioned, my name is Aaron Jablonowski. I'm a senior solutions engineer with CloudBolt. I've been one for over 5 years now, so I have a lot of background with the CloudBolt product, and I understand that you've seen it today, which is excellent. And you know that we offer self-service and orchestration and automation, tracking the costs of deployments, right? In a hybrid cloud environment has traditionally been challenging, right? Because if you look at the CloudBolt product in general, we support a number of different resource handlers, and to include on-prem resources, this can get out of control very quickly, right? So for CloudBolt's part, we can generate reporting. We have metadata. We do discoveries of all the resources that are, servers or otherwise in those environments. And sometimes we're not talking about servers. Maybe we're talking about databases as a service, and or storage. Tracking those costs, again, within CloudBolt exists today for on-prem and public cloud. But with the acquisition of Cumulus, what this is going to provide is essentially taking a scalpel, right, into those different accounts, and not only finding ways to optimize cost, but also ways to optimize security, because as you know, these things go hand in hand, right? We have kind of a cheeky saying here, if you make a mistake in these public clouds, it's a resume generating event, right? Meaning that, either if you're wasting money in the cloud or if you don't lock something down, right? If you have an issue with security, worst case, you end up in the news, right? Or to a lesser extent, you have to generate a new resume, right? Which is bad in either case. At any rate, to talk about how Cumulus helps, right? So with the CloudBolt product, we'll do a brownfield discovery of all the resources in the environment to provide lifecycle management tracking, right? In the case of Cumulus, it's very similar. What we can provide is an admin portal or a portal for specific tenants. So it's fully role-based access controlled in that we make a connection to specific cloud adapters, right? We use this term adapters, and this is going to include full integration with AWS organizations, right? So once we're authenticated, we automatically discover all the accounts. Okay? It's a similar process for Azure, for those enterprise agreements and CSPs, right? It's different APIs for different subscriptions, but the point is we can provide least privilege access, right, to those different accounts to be able to see, right? Visibility is key here, right? What we want to do is have a single pane of glass so we can consolidate everything here and see where our spend lies, right? And it's going to gather this information using a couple of different methods. It's going to use CloudTrail to some extent. it's going to continuously update the information that it has as well, right? So we can set up different tenants, right? So in this case, I'm showing a demo instance that doesn't have a lot of useful data, unfortunately, but you'll get the idea essentially. And as somebody who's also new to CloudBolt, or Cumulus rather, trying to find my way around the product as well, and things change quite a bit. So once we have the adapter connection, we've set up our different groups and roles and tenants. They'll have access into the portal, and then they can generate very granular reports. Right? And again, this extends beyond just EC2 instances, right? We need to be able to see the servers, but there's other items, right? We're talking compute, we're talking database, we're talking storage. In some cases, we're talking data transfer. So each of these reports are click through, and I can go and generate, again, detailed reporting based on specific parameters. Maybe I'm looking for a specific account over time in a particular region that has a certain tag. I can create these fully customized reports and have them emailed, exported, and I can generate these on a recurring basis. Okay. Another, when we're talking public cloud, when we're talking AWS specifically, there's this notion of reserved instances. So a lot of times, and we'll do evaluation with customers actually, and we'll apply some of these recommendations, and they'll find that they're swiping the credit card to spin up a device or a server on demand. But if they're using it that much to that extent, then they should probably consider reserved instances, right? So that's what those reserved instance recommendations are doing. We're going to take a look and show you exactly how much you could be saving if you were to switch to an RI, to a reserved instance. Now, there is a little bit of overlap with the CloudBolt product. I don't know if you were aware, but for the AWS resource handler specifically, there is functionality based on the parameters that you feed into it. There's functionality here that will make recommendations for RIs, but Cumulus, for its part, is much more granular, right? And this is why this acquisition happened, right? We want to make this data available to CloudBolt or within CloudBolt. So we're essentially extending our functionality in that space, right? Moving on to the cost advisor here. So what this does is, again, we're looking at the spend, but more importantly, we're looking at the potential benefit in those accounts. And one thing that we've noticed is if we have a metric like efficiency here, and let me see if I can find an account that has a bit more data in it. When we're talking efficiency within the organization, we want to drive that. And there's different needs for that. It's certain organizations that we work with, they want to drive the cost down. And in some cases, they'll have multiple tenants within that same organization, and they'll essentially make this a competition, right? How efficient can we get with our public cloud spend? It's a really good thing to drive toward. But yeah, these reports are click through, and again, you can customize them. Going to the cost advisor though, and looking at that potential benefit, we can also gather some recommendations for optimization. So here we have a potential benefit across all of these accounts, right? So it's detailing for each account what that potential benefit is here. And if we want to report against that, if we want to show what the spend is, obviously not that much, but on RDS snapshots, right? But take a look at the idle running services, right? So Cumulus has discovered that there are a number of idle running EC2 instances, and this would be the potential benefit if you were to turn those off, right? And there's many other metrics rather, how we can save money. Do we turn off idle load balancers, right? Do we remove volume snapshots? These are all things that unfortunately we're paying for in the public cloud. It's not fully optimized. Right? We're not leveraging it. We're not making full use of it. Okay. So being able to report against these items is invaluable. Just having the visibility into the environment and seeing where that money is going. But you notice this cogwheel here, we can create an automation. that will in fact remediate that or fix it essentially. So I click that event scheduler, you'll see that I have an example here that's running, and this is in fact going to stop specific tag services. Now you can apply these types of automations against the environment in a safer way, doing a dry run, because in some cases you might have EC2 instances that you know that the CPU load is going to be minimal, right? You might have a DNS server that it doesn't use much of the CPU, but that is a production instance that does not need to go down, right? We don't want to add efficiency to that. However, we can opt out of that, right? So we can do a dry run where it doesn't make any changes, and we also can create events that will in fact make changes in that environment. Okay, and these can be rolled up to emails to an admin, to an individual, to a tenant, right? And we can add events here to do a multitude of things, right? So if we want to say right size our EC2 instances, we can generate that event. We can define it for all the regions that we have, or we can select specific ones. Okay. We can look at specific services here. In this case, we'll look at servers, and we'll look for let's do a tag, maybe the environment. We want to do this against our production environment, for example. Right? We can add that event, and we can specify filters and do commands on top of that, and then we can allow of course, the end user to opt out of those notifications. But the point is, we have this fully functional automation platform to be able to right size, to be able to turn systems off, right? To fully take advantage of that benefit. Okay. Any questions? I know there's a lot of folks on the call, and maybe you might be shy and don't want to ask questions, but maybe you could throw it in the chat, or maybe you're not shy and you want to ask a question. Is there anything on the cost optimization side that I can answer? Yeah, nothing in the chat. Fair enough. Okay. So there's two main pillars to Cumulus. The first being cost optimization, right? When we're talking on the financial side. So right sizing, cost efficiency, being able to fully optimize the specific environments based on tagging, and again, it extends beyond just simple servers. But that's the first pillar. The second is the security aspects, right? And these two things really go hand in hand, because again, if we're talking about resume generating events, we're talking about, unfortunately, being in the news. These are bad, and they go together, right? And let me give you an example. If we have an environment and we're running a number of RDS instances, and they are potentially not just underutilized, but also are misconfigured, right? This is dangerous for an organization, right? To have resources in the public cloud that are misconfigured. It's essentially a threat in that environment. But typically, it's also wasting money, right? Because we're not leveraging these objects, right? Take S3, for example, properly in the environment. It's wasting money, and it's not secure. One use case in the public cloud is having S3 buckets, right? You have an S3 bucket that you're paying for in the public cloud, but it's misconfigured. It's very dangerous, right? Security threat. For CloudBolt's part, as you know, we have a catalog and we can deploy resources, and we use the term implicit governance, meaning if I create a blueprint that's deployable from our self-service catalog, I know that it's going to be built the same way every time, right? It's cookie cutter. If an end user wants to build something, they can just give it a name. They don't need to know that underneath the hood, we're doing Boto 3 calls. Maybe we're making it private by default. So we've configured that specifically for that customer or for that tenant in that environment. to be built exactly the same way every time, right? What we don't do from CloudBolt's end is do a continuous checkup, right, on that instance, because if somebody goes into the back end and they make that that S3 bucket public, we're not going to capture that in CloudBolt unless we specifically define code or discovery code to do so. And this is an issue because what we need to do is continuously monitor these environments for threats, right? So what constitutes a threat? I mean, essentially, as you know, a misconfigured object, whether it's a volume or a role or some other aspect in the public cloud, there exists these threats that would potentially open us up, right, to attack, to somebody gaining control of an asset, right? So this is not good for the environment. But Cumulus will apply a number of security standards. So if you're familiar with CIS standards or PCI, NIST, these are different standards that we can layer over the top of those objects and define whether or not they're secure, essentially. Okay. And we can generate these reports, okay, which is nice. Being able to see the security posture of your entire environment at a very high level is important, right? You need that visibility. However, where Cumulus takes it a step further is it will allow you to actually visualize those environments, right? So I can see here all my services laid out in VPCs in that public cloud environment. If I choose, I'm going to choose this one here to take a look at. And Cumulus will, in fact, visualize that VPC and show you all the different connections, right? How this network connects to this component, to these EC2 instances within this region, right? So it's all laid out for you here. And each of these objects we can get deeper information about, right? However, when we click this shield at the top, we can overlay security standards on that visualization. There's not another product in the marketplace that does this. For example, maybe you're familiar with Cloud Checker or Cloud Health, one of these, that they don't do this, right? So this is significant, and it's exclusive to Cumulus. So here we can see the connectivity between those different objects, and these red dots indicate that there's a threat for that specific element. So remember, we're talking about cost optimization, right? Here's an RDS instance that's running. It's not connected to anything, right? If I click that red dot, I notice that there are threats and there's severities labeled here within that particular object. So it's an underutilized RDS instance. And that's a high threat level because essentially you're opening that attack vector into that environment by having this random object just kind of floating out there. And it also has vulnerabilities to a lesser extent regarding its master username. But the point is, not only is it wasting money because it's underutilized, it's also not secured. Right? So again, just reiterate two aspects. They kind of go hand in hand, right? When we talk security, we're talking cost optimization and vice versa. All right. So these are all EC2 instances in that environment, but also notice that when I click here, I can see how they connect and how they relate to the other objects in that environment. So the machine image, right? The volume that it's connected to. There's medium vulnerability or severity of a threat here for the recent snapshots. I can see that it's a member of these security groups, right? And there's threats against that security group as well. I can see that the server itself has vulnerabilities in terms of its configuration and how it is deployed. Okay. So again, it's fine and good to generate reports, Excel spreadsheets, right? Whatever you got when you're looking at these different threats and security vulnerabilities, but being able to visualize it is key. And of course, you can export these. You can send these to somebody who might, security folks, who again, using the role-based access controls, might log in and have access to a small subset, but they can generate these types of visualizations and generate compliance reports for those environments. As far as the standards that we can apply, out of the box, we're doing CIS, right? And in a lot of cases here, if there is a vulnerability, say for, I don't know, no root account access key exists, which is good in this case. If I click here, it'll take me to that specific standard for CIS. Okay. In a similar fashion, we can overlay PCI compliance. Right. These are all different standards. Again, different verticals that you might work with. So, you know, finance, healthcare, government, they might have their own specific standard. And my understanding from the Cumulus development team is that these standards exist as more or less configuration files. Again, back to the old spreadsheet, right? So to add new ones into Cumulus is somewhat trivial, right? It's easy to get new standards loaded in. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, NIST and HIPAA were not standards yet in the platform. So it's kind of a pleasant surprise for me when I logged in and saw, oh, now there's HIPAA there, right? So we can add those new standards as they become relevant or as a particular customer has a need for that. Cumulus, the company itself, was an Australian-based company, and there was a number of standards involving Australian banking standards, right? So they had to employ those, so able to get those into the product for specific customers. But NIST is a well-known standard. HIPAA, if you're not aware, is a standard related to healthcare providers, right? In the different levels of security that they need to maintain with their data. Okay. And it lays it all out here, you know, what the standard is and how it can be applied and where those vulnerabilities lie in your environment. Okay. So those are the two main things I wanted to cover during this campfire. I mean, I want to talk about security optimization and how we provide that via visualization and reporting. I also wanted to talk about the cost optimization, how we can generate fine-grained reports about the environment or about the tenant or about the specific sub-tenant within those tenants. And that's all within this product. Now, one thing I have to also mention is how it's going to tie into the CloudBolt product. So as you're aware, CloudBolt has a number of out-of-the-box reports that we can run. Again, nothing is fine-grained as Cumulus, right? But as you know, additionally, CloudBolt is a hybrid cloud management platform. So it's not just on-prem, it's not just public cloud. It's typically our customers will have a combination of resource handlers. They'll be managing costs on-prem as well as public cloud. So initially, and I don't want to go too deep into the roadmap, as of course it's above my pay grade anyway. But the idea originally or initially here is to provide that functionality as UI extensions into CloudBolt, right? So we want to see the reporting where we would expect to see it. For example, if you look again at the AWS resource handler, there's RI recommendations here, right? That we can make. But that functionality is duplicated in the Cumulus product. So just quick background on UI extensions. What they are is essentially a package that I upload to CloudBolt, and it will extend CloudBolt's UI, right? So if we talk about and I'll show you where those live here. If we look at their reports, you'll notice that there's 3 custom reports here. Okay. That's a report extension that gets uploaded and it ends up on the CloudBolt server here, and we can adjust those, customize them to our needs. Right. There's also a Hello World dashboard. So this widget that gets uploaded, or this package that gets uploaded, generates a widget on the CloudBolt dashboard. Right. You see here. So this is the Hello World dashboard, and this is just a fun little game that just created as a widget. But the point is you can extend the UI of CloudBolt to include external data. And initially the data that exists within Cumulus will be pulled in via a UI extension. And I just so happen to have a mock-up of what that would look like here. So if you're familiar, again, you're familiar with the resource handler connection, and we have a bit of the costs pulled in. And again, a lot of times we're limited in CloudBolt by what the API provides us, right? So we're making API connections to all these endpoints, and we can pull in the billing. We've extended that to, say, point to an S3 bucket or see what the cost is. But the idea is to pull in the Cumulus data. So eventually we get to a place like this where each individual environment, or maybe the resource handler overall, will include all that, all that necessary data, and include the optimizations that we showed, or the events that we showed on Cumulus. And so this is just what it would look like in the future, and it's don't hold me to this because this is just a mock-up of what it would look like, but this is the direction we're going, right? We want to include this information in addition to the security information in a single pane of glass. All right. So I know that's a lot of data. I know it's a lot of information to digest. And I wanted to leave the last 5 minutes here for questions, concerns, just general campfire talk. Any questions about that? The sound of pure silence on that end is a little disquieting.
Yeah, I guess they are really shy with their questions. But Aaron, this was really a good deep dive of your Cumulus solution. Thank you very much for presenting it. Hopefully, together we will implement this across the organizations, especially organizations that participated in this event, and enable the cost transparency across their organization with Cumulus and CloudBolt, of course.
Excellent.
Hey, Dennis. This is Anthony from CloudBolt. I wanted to see if, real quick, I wanted to let your customers, whoever's on the phone, know that we are currently running a promotion on Cumulus in the month of December. And basically, we're doing a free cost assessment. So it's a free assessment. It takes 3 to 5 days. And basically what we do is we can see and guarantee that we can save you 20% on your public cloud spend. If we can't find 20% savings, we will either do one of the two things. We will make a $1,000 donation to the charity of that organization's choice, or we will credit them $1,000 in cloud credits for either AWS or Azure. So I just wanted to make you and your customers aware that that is something we're offering in the month of December.
Thank you, Anthony. Of course, we will include this information additionally in our follow-ups. So all of our participants, including those participants that couldn't join us in the live event, but will get the recorded sessions in the follow-up mail, we will include this information, and hopefully then we will save some costs in the public cloud domains for the customers and do the charity also in addition. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Aaron. This was really nice.
Thanks.